Alright, hello everyone. This is Michael Mertens and I'm presenting my project on microplastics that are invading local stream sediments. Alright, so just for some background on the subject, so we're going to look at right now just the scale of it. And so when we look in larger marine ecosystems, we've already known that there has been some microplastic pollution that has been showing itself, and then this causes many problems within the fish themselves and the areas, and it can also have a lasting effect on humans if not treated with a certain amount of time. But that's just on the larger scale of things. But now, so with my project, I'm trying to look at it within a smaller scale. So in recent more discoveries, we have seen within the sediment of some smaller freshwater streams, we have been able to see microplastic pollution. And so when I was looking into it, I was trying to see for what reasoning could this be for microplastics to be there. We could see that in residential areas, and there are some local factors that are the main reason as to why these microplastics are becoming abundant in these local streams. And so now I'm just going to go into some of the problems that come with these microplastics. And so they can heavily affect fish population, and in turn can affect the health of humans. So with fish, when the fish with microplastics in the water and in the sediment around, and fish being able in the water. So if fish actually ingest these plastics, they get stuck within their body, and they get stuck within their gastrointestinal tract, which makes them pretty much their body just starts to shut down, and then they can just die, just from the effect of it sitting in their system, and it can begin to poison them pretty much. And then we can see now that since humans obviously consume fish, the fish that have these higher concentrations of plastic within them can cause some actual body damage to humans, and especially within drinking water that has seen high amounts of these microplastics. It can weaken your cells and your immune systems, or pretty much making you more prone to being sick and more available for certain diseases or just problems with your body to occur. And then, so now we're going to look at the local factors as to why these plastics can come inside of these streams near residential areas, or just as to how it can get there in the first place. So within some research done in, I think it may have been New York, we can see that within the so when we see within the residential area, we can see that septic systems are a big reason as to why plastics are able to flow into these streams, because when it's treated, it may not be treated correctly, and so it's not actually catching these plastics, and they're able to flow back into the stream itself, and then the plastic can just reside within the sediment. And then another reason that has been seen is some wastewater treatment plant effluent that goes back into the streams, where after it's treated, and it's reduced back into biosolids, so they may not be trapping enough of these plastics when it's going back into biosolids within it, and then when it's placed back into the area and not done properly, it can affect the stream and the sediment, especially when the solids break back down and then they start flowing back into the streams. And then another big factor that I'm looking to within my project is dams. And so so we can see that dams, they do have the possibility of stopping these plastics. And so in another research done in New York, we can see that these dams do have the possibility of stopping the plastics from upstreams, and so the sediment flow will slow, and that will also in turn stop plastics from being able to flow further down into a stream or a reservoir. So what I'm trying to ask in this project is, well, first I'm trying to see if there are any microplastics that are residing within the creek that's right behind my house. And then the next thing that I'm just building off of from that is, since there is a dam in place, I'm trying to see if the sediment that is upstream from the dam or the sediment that is downstream from the dam, which side would have a higher count of plastic particles, and to see if a dam can actually have a positive effect on the count of plastic within a certain area. And so my hypothesis during this is going to be that, so what I really think is that the upstream side of the dam will have a higher count due to dams being able to stop sediment flow, and that in turn will stop the plastic from flowing further downstream. And so pretty much the study area for this. So Flat Rock Creek, I am right next to Flat Rock Park. There is big residential areas within here. There's about, I would say I know of at least one apartment complex and then a bunch of just subdivisions. And then, so what I'm doing is there's a dam that sections off from the lake, and then and then it filters off from a dam to go further downstream. So the area that I decided to look into was upstream of the dam, which you can see with the marker number 1 and number 2. That is the area at which I conducted my sampling in the sediment for the upstream portion. And then after you go down from the lake, and then where I pretty much put number 2, it is right where after the dam has started. And so in between number 3 and number 4, that is where I had conducted my research for downstream of the dam sediment. So this is how I actually conducted my research and how I was able to just see if anything was actually there. So what I did was I took 5 core samples from each upstream and downstream. And then, after I had recorded these samples, they were brought back into the lab. And so what I did was, just to see the sediment itself, I recorded just a volume of the sediment besides from the water that was also collected through the core sampling. And then after I recorded the sediment, they would go back into the whirlpool bag that we used to collect in, and then they need to go through density separation, meaning that so we need the plastics to separate from the sediment itself, so I can actually get a count of how many would be there. And to do this, we had to make a heavy saturated salt solution, and had some problems trying to figure out what could work, what could not work, because trying to find proper saturation of certain chemicals didn't work. But eventually we came down to just getting a nice just salt solution, getting it placed down to certain concentrations, just so that we could actually see the shift between sediment and plastics. And so then right before they are placed into the solution, though, they go through a sieve, just so that we can get all the creek water out of there, so that the extra water won't affect the concentration of our solution. And so then I would just take the sediment that has then gone through the sieve, put it into a glass container, like we can see within the 1A through 1E and the 2A through 2E, and then they just need to sit out for a few days, and then we can test it later. And so just in the picture on the left, it would be from the sieve that I had used to separate the water from the sediment. So we let the samples rest for 48 hours, and then after they have rested and everything has settled, I can take a pipette and then within the top of the container, use the pipette to just collect all the accumulating particles at the top that are floating from the heavier salt solution. That plastics will rise to the top because they are less dense than the salt solution. And then after I take it from the pipette, I will go and put them into a beaker, and then I will look at that under a microscope. And then after that, the best way I can do to conduct this research is just to visually count under the microscope how many plastic particles I can see, and just tell what is actually going on within the sediment at Flat Rock Park. And so this is the results I was able to see. So this is just for the volume of the sediment in the samples itself. And so we can see from the blue, which would be upstream of the dam, there's already a higher average number of sediment in the upstream part than in consideration to the downstream. And this is mainly because so before the dam, it can just flow freely, so there's a lot of sediment buildup. But then after it comes into the lake and then into the dam stops a lot of the sediment flow, and so pretty much it just stops a lot of it's pretty much just water being allowed to come through there. And so that's why, especially when I was sampling, you can see within the sediment itself that the sediment downstream there was a lot less to sample, just due to the dam stopping all the sediment flow. So we can already see that there could be a possible more buildup of plastics within just a volume, just due to the amount of sediment that is within each upstream or downstream. And so now we're actually looking at the visual count of plastic particles I was able to take. And so we can see that upstream, of course, which is following my hypothesis in saying that the upstream portion did have a higher count of plastic particles due to the dam. And so what we can take from this is that the is that my hypothesis is correct in saying that the dam did stop plastic flow and sediment flow from being able to come down the dam. And so when we can look at the p-value for the volume of the sediment, we can see that it's 0.005. So making sure that the test itself was significant enough to where we can accept the results. And then with this number of plastic particles, it's p-value of 0.0113. And so we can also take with this p-value that the statistics I ran would be significant enough to say that it actually was true what happened. And so we can see that from the graphs that I had, from the results I got, that dams can play a major part in stopping sediment flow. And and from my graph of the plastic particles of the actual count, we can say that it can only not stop sediment flow, but then also this in turn can help stop plastic particles from continuing to flow downstream. And so what we can take from this is that dams may have a positive effect on plastic and sediment flow, but the big thing is we can't just be putting more dams within small local streams, because there will be a lot of more negative influence from these dams than just being able to stop plastics. So another step that could be taken in this would be to another solution besides dams. I've been spitballing, I've been looking. I haven't really found anything to where that can be done yet. Now, further developments in technology and science can obviously make these things happen. But what I was thinking is, rather than placing more dams or stopping that, we can just find the source sites from these plastics, stop them there, or we can develop new structures of dams that can allow even just the fish to go through, water to keep flowing, and then be able to stop sediment flow and plastic pollutants from continuing to go. And here's my references. And are there any questions?